A good part of the reason why so many Caribbean passports are so powerful is the fact that most of us are tiny, and will likely never use them. The countries extending this diplomatic olive branch to us do so with the tacit expectation that we won't come, we won't stay too long, and if we somehow actually do manage to make it there, we won't arrive in numbers that pose a threat to their own stability. This is Disgruntled Musings, a compilation of quick commentary on the latest socio-political news and updates from across the Caribbean region. I'm your host Shem, podcast producer here at the cpsi. Let's get into it. We start off with small business news in Barbados. Minister Lisa Cummins promises a new small business network for connecting owners to new opportunities. Let me stop the Honorable Minister right there. Small businesses in Barbados are mostly a joke. This is not meant to offend any of the legitimate goods and service proprietors here on the island. Heck, some of my closest friends are great entrepreneurs. But they're a joke, mainly because the government pretends to care about fostering them, while kind of unceremoniously doing everything in its power to make creating or managing one a nightmare. Just look no further than the island's foreign exchange levy. It imposes a 2% charge on every single international transaction. Need to source craft materials for a new product? 2%. Need ingredients for a novelty menu item to differentiate yourself? 2%. Planning to offer your services beyond the 166 measly square miles of the rock? Too bad. Everything you try to acquire overseas will attract a 2% charge. And that shit adds up fast. You're quite literally being punished for daring to have any item or service that the island itself doesn't offer. And I don't know about you, but we have XYZ at home isn't what I want my government to be gaslighting me about. I've already given my honest thoughts on the FX debate, foreign exchange. Just last episode, I made a whole embattled plea for my people to rise up and demand US dollars. Foreign exchange controls hurt businesses. They restrict market access, and they perpetuate the lie that a healthy economy needs to be self-sufficient. We don't need to make Pop-Tarts in Barbados. I don't care about promising initiatives for growing sustainable rice in St. Philip. The import bill itself is often used as like a scapegoat for issues surrounding government spending. Every time the Prime Minister and friends bring it up, they're actually directly blaming you, the consumer, and businesses for having international tastes. I don't want yams. I don't want Eddos. I just want a damn Pop-Tart. So all this entrepreneur nonsense is just a smokescreen to distract from the government's own poor spending habits and to place the blame on you and me for making honest living, making honest lives. For those of you who managed to carve out your niche in this rubbish heap, more power to you. Let's hop across the sea to our neighbor and Helen of the West, Saint Lucia. Castries announced that Creole, I'm just going to call it Creole instead of embarrassing myself, the French broken Creole that is spoken by the native population of the island is going to be taught in schools. Hot take. Let's start with the hot take here. There is no actual economic or cultural advantage to doing this, and it's even more eyebrow-raising following the announcement just a few weeks ago by the CXC that the region students are sucking at passing basic English. Now I can hear the cultural pundits going, it's preserving an integral part of blah 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 blah. No, it's preserving broken French, which the island has crafted as part of some identity to sell to tourists. It may have had origins in slavery and all that, but why are you trying to preserve that part of your past instead of progressing beyond it? In the age of globalization, hamstringing your own curriculum with languages that aren't going to be used outside of your own minuscule borders sets you back. And it fosters insularity for no other reason than maintaining a way of life that was made obsolete the moment we invented the airplane. You can't keep your country linguistically in the Stone Age and wonder why you're being left behind. English, for better or for worse, is the lingua franca of the planet. Creole is entrenched enough, then it will keep its place in your language pool. Otherwise, let that bitch go the way of Latin and stop fighting progress. Now for the cold take. Yeah, sure, whatever. Maybe just revisit your policies on education for the wave of post-pandemic illiterates who will now never leave the island. But at least they know Creole now, right? Atlantic Ocean away, there's a writer for the UK Guardian newspaper, one Patricia Dunham, finishes a piece and she titles it, "Wherever you have drugs, you have guns. Why is there an epidemic of violence in the Caribbean?" Okay, I don't know, Patricia. You tell me, because your piece kind of missed the mark in a few areas here. Likely intentionally, maybe to protect a bit of national pride, perhaps. Oh no, she's Jamaican. This one's all over the place. But the gist of it is, the region's got a lot of drugs and guns, which is promoting turf wars or something. She throws in declining family values so that a London housewife will clutch their pearls in concern, and then she throws something in about Haiti to convince the foreign ministry to start readying the next draft of ill-conceived policies. Okay, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh. She's not entirely off the mark. Drugs and guns do spur on the crimes we are seeing across the region, as it would anywhere else in the world. And yes, there's a bit of an uptick in crime. But Natricia, the answer is staring you right in the face and you willingly ignored it. You mentioned that the region is a transshipment point for contraband. Transshipping between who and who, Natricia? Yeah, she wrote this entire piece in some sort of fervor and didn't acknowledge that the UK and USA are both the largest source and market for the drugs, guns, and shifty financial services that she's side-eyeing the Cayman Islands for. And why is Haiti even in there? Why have you brought that up? That's like complaining about crime in Europe escalating because of the war in Ukraine. Is that a thing? Haiti is a collapsed failed state. It doesn't have a crime rate. That's just life in Haiti now. Pay no attention to the CARICOM membership thing. We can go ahead and blot it out of most maps. Just leave it gray like Western Sahara for no data and definitely no government. Next up, the Caribbean warned to brace for heat. Antigua and Barbuda's Met Office joined in the regional chorus, telling us this week to prepare for the impending barbecue that the region will be placed on, and to get ready for uncomfortable temperatures over the next few days. It's the usual high temperature warning, climate change, yada yada. They do this ever so often, and they also warn about the health risks this sort of thing poses to people living in the region. And I quote, "Extreme heat can lead to heat-related illnesses such as heat stroke, heat exhaustion, fainting, cramps, rash, and edema." Okay, so what are we going to do about it? I am confused as to what the plan is here. Sure, I'm grateful for the warnings, but what exactly are we to do to rectify or survive these new normal temperatures? Let's face it, this is the new normal. Sweltering summers and intensifying storms mean climate stress across the board for everyone. But I'm not seeing the concerted effort necessary by governments of the region to alleviate this stress. They're certainly not building storm-resistant homes, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Grenada. And they haven't got the money or willpower to enforce any actual building codes. So, okay, how about air conditioning? Well, outside of Trinidad and Tobago, you can't run aircon in the Caribbean for more than 3 business seconds before the electricity company is holding your firstborn up for ransom. It's just too pricey. There's an entire narrative here that no one is considering. The climate crisis can rapidly evolve into a health one, medical. I record this podcast in a 36-degree room. I'm not kidding. There's a thermometer on my wall. 36, very humid. Most days. Besides the fact that my little portable AC unit, I call her Jacinta, is a little on the loud side and I don't want to apply too much noise reduction on these recordings, it's just simply too pricey to run her for the entire period of time of the day that it's most intense. It's almost like the governments of the region have no actual plan to keep the region from becoming unbearable or unlivable in the long term. But that would be crazy, right? Right? If these summers are just the tip of the iceberg and we're being warned that the effects of heat exposure can have, detrimental effects on vulnerable groups, then where's the subsidized energy program? Cooling centers? Maybe a shift in work hours to avoid the hottest parts of the day? Because so far, there's nothing. We've been told it's gonna get hot. How hot? Really hot. Good luck. Guys, I think we might be in hell here. Today's long talk is more of a eulogy. It's going to be a little on the sad side. What are we mourning? We are mourning the death of Barbados's bus transit network. And I title this one, Where the Bus? Listeners, this may come as a shock to you, but I don't drive. That's right. This disembodied, melodious voice may seem to be emanating from someone who's got their shit together, but I don't have a driver's license. It just never happened for me. To be fair, I live in one of the most connected and walkable neighborhoods of my fair island. A supermarket, doctor's office, hardware, school, and beach are all within 15 minutes by foot. Every now and then, however, an errand or some other interest draws me out of my neck of the woods, and then reality hits me like a brick. The transit network in Barbados sucks. Some routes have schedules that see buses pass hourly. What's so bad about an hourly bus, you ask? Well, the island terminates in about 30 minutes in any direction from the center. Yeah, it really is that small. How on God's green earth does the local transit body even justify hourly frequency? It's simple. They don't have a fleet. Barbados suffers from a glaring lack of accountability and any foresight at levels of basically every level of government. But the most glaring example is the transport board. This organization was founded in 1955 by an act of parliament which consolidated several private bus companies, and the board wasn't always a shit show. In fact, we had a golden era. There was a time when buses would zip by my house every 15 minutes. Not hourly, not even bi-hourly. That's right, 15 minutes. Can you feel it? You could keep track of the time of day just by listening out for the rumble of an old Acme or Chow bus. Just before 2007, Barbados had hosted the ICC World Cup. Sound familiar? Alongside several other islands. The government was really excited to flex, the infrastructural muscle from all that tourism money that was burning a hole in its pocket, and it bought 70 new buses from Brazil. Now, I am a huge fan of public transit. If you didn't guess that by now, I was in heaven. The routes weren't perfect, and the buses weren't entirely suited for our roads. I mean, there was literally an infamous video of an elderly lady trying to disastrous effects to get onto one of the buses because they're so high off the ground. But by gosh, in my mind, we had a functioning transit system. I could tell you any route number you needed to get you anywhere you needed to be. I had it all in the back of my head. Now, I was still a kid. I was still in school, so there was no way I could have seen what was coming next. Over the next decade, that's right, just 10 years, what proceeded could only be described as the most pathetic fall from grace I've ever seen in a public system. In just under 10 years, Barbados' proud fleet of 300 plus omnibuses dwindled to less than 60. The board was struggling to find parts, funding, staff, you name it. The golden era came crashing down. I mean, if you were to ask me how to get from point A to B in Barbados today, I'd say let us bow our heads in prayer. Today, the fleet isn't even numbered. The board is way too scared to say the size out loud, lest they get laughed at. But we did buy a few electric buses recently. Those things are already falling apart, and the drivers seem keen on playing demolition derbies with the damn things. I can't make heads or tails of the current route map, I'll be honest. It was wishful thinking to think I could before, but today it's more like reading tea leaves. One quirk of this map is that there are 2 terminals in the city. Bridgetown has 2 terminals. It's by no means a large city. You could walk the length of our capital in under an hour. Hell, in under 30 minutes if you do the gay walk, but it's got 2 terminals. You need to see it to believe it. Maybe it's a relic of an optimistic era that's gone. I don't know. I once heard rumors that the southbound terminal that we call Fairchild was supposed to be built into some grand structure to consolidate all the routes. It's hard to see that from the rusting tool shed that they're passing as the Fairchild terminal today, but every few years they repaint it. And last year they renamed it to the Granville something terminal, and it promptly flooded in a rainstorm the next day. Divine intervention, I tell you. The sorry state of the bus system is the reason everyone here has a car and deeply believes you need one to survive. People here have become so car-centric, they've completely forgotten that you should slow down before you enter a roundabout. Those things that Americans are terrified of. And that's logically where you should put a pedestrian crossing. It's kind of insane how many cars, by the way, are crammed onto this tiny rock. And even really much more insane when you consider the price of them. Our government, which is consistently putting the horse before the cart, has thrown every tax and levy under the sun at car purchase and import. But they really underestimated just how much vitriol they have generated for public transit. Barbadians are now more resolved than ever to they will never find themselves at the mercy of public buses again. And I mean, I can't blame them. We used to have an old TV show called Bajan Bus Stop, and the opening theme was a small band of neighbors singing about not seeing a bus and guessing that it may have broken down. This decade-old show was making fun of a dysfunctional bus system all those years ago, and somehow we've come full circle, and I'm just sitting here now singing, where the bus to town, where the bus, like the bus break down again, like the bus break down. Until next week, listeners. This has been Disgruntled Musings. If you enjoyed the episode, check out the full series at cpsi.media. Here, you'll also find our full library of written and audio works.